Hello, boys and girls. It's Miss Argento here with your literacy lesson today on day 39. Today we are really asking ourselves a question. What comes from trees? That's the question we are here to focus on today. What comes from trees? We are going to use our two texts we have been reading, and we are going to really try to pull out the details that help us answer that question, what comes from trees? And we will have an activity to do together at the end. I'm very excited to get started with you today. So, our question, what comes from trees? We're going to read through our text, and I want you to keep your brain wide open, listening for all those details about what comes from trees. What could trees grow? What do trees make? What do we get from trees? Okay, so if you hear anything, make sure you put it in your brain really quick because we're going to talk about everything that comes from trees. The first thing we're going to look at is our story, things made of wood. So I'm going to read through. Remember, keep your brain open. What comes from trees? Things made of wood. Wood comes from trees. Chairs can be made of wood. Puzzles can be made of wood. Houses can be made of wood. Bridges can be made of wood. Boats can be made of wood. Fences can be made of wood. And toys can be made of wood. That was a good story. And it told us a lot of things that can be made from wood. And wood comes from trees. Let's put that in our brain and look at our poem. Here's our poem we've been reading, We Depend on Trees. Now I'm going to read this poem, and you also keep your brain open again to things we might be getting from trees. What is coming from the trees? Okay, so we depend on trees. We depend on trees. We depend on trees. We eat fruits and nuts and chocolates. We depend on trees. Caterpillars depend on trees. Caterpillars depend on trees. They munch on leaves just as they please. Caterpillars depend on trees. Deer depend on trees. Deer depend on trees. They feed on bark in day or dark. Deer depend on trees. Squirrels depend on trees. Squirrels depend on trees. They scarf down seeds and nuts with ease. Squirrels depend on trees. Birds depend on trees. Birds depend on trees. They fly in line to eat and dine. Birds depend on trees. All right, so I definitely heard some things in there that come from trees that we use. Good job listening to our two different texts and trying to pull out those details so we can answer our question, what comes from trees? Great job listening, boys and girls. Okay, so what comes from trees? We've listened to our text. We've pulled out all those details. Now let's talk about it. What comes from trees? Yes, food. We know food comes from trees. It could be fruits, nuts, seeds, chocolates. Even in class in the books that we read from there, we can think all the way back and say that sap and syrup comes from trees. What else comes from trees? Yes, wood. Wood comes from trees. Trees are made of wood. And we know that wood gives us lots of different stuff. Like what? Yes, like a fence. Wood can help us build a bridge, a boat that we can use on a lake or a river. Wood can help us make houses. We know that wood can make a couple different kinds of toys, like puzzles, blocks that you build with, or even wood toys like trains or wooden logs to build with, or wooden blocks to build words. We know that wood also makes furniture. We even looked in our classroom at school and saw all the furniture in our classroom that was made by wood. So it can make furniture like tables or chairs. All that stuff can come from wood, which comes from trees. Now, I know that if we think way back, there's something else that I remember that comes from trees and that we can think back on. And that's paper. We know that paper came from trees. And that's fun for us to remember from our reading at school. Okay? So now that we've talked about all this different stuff that comes from trees, I bet you have lots of different ideas about it. Now it's time to do our writing. If you have this page in your packet, you can go ahead and open up to it so we can get started together. If you don't have this packet, that's okay. You just need paper and a pencil, and maybe some crayons or other coloring things if you want to color your pictures in. If you need to, go ahead and pause the video so you can get your stuff together so we can get started on our activity. Okay, now that we're ready, here's what we are doing. On this piece of paper right here, we have a very big chart. We are going to fill in every square of this chart of something that we learned comes from trees. You're going to use pictures and words like a label to show what's there. So I'm going to do a few with you, and then you're going to help fill in all the rest. I'm excited. Let's get started. So, using pictures or words, make a list of all the things you have learned about that come from trees. Well, what's something that I've learned about that comes from trees? What am I going to put a picture of here? I'm going to put a picture of wood. I know wood comes from trees. Yes, I've drawn my wood up there. And now what am I going to do? Yes, boys and girls, I am going to label that picture. Good job. Pat yourself on the back. That was awesome. So now I've got a picture of my wood and I've labeled it wood because wood comes from trees. What else comes from trees? What am I going to draw next? I know. An apple. And you can see on my paper, I drew an apple. I colored it because that's what I wanted to do with my picture. And I wrote the word apple. Awesome. Now we've got that. Apples come from trees. All right, let's do one more together before you get to do it all on your own. What's the last thing I want to put on there? Ooh, I want to draw a boat because I know that we can make boats out of wood. I think that's just so cool that we can use a tree and get wood and make a boat. And I wrote my label, boat. You can see I colored my picture. Now it's your turn, boys and girls. There's still lots of squares left. If you need to, you can go back in this video and listen to our story or our poem again, thinking about the things that are made from wood and what we depend on trees for, and really pull out what comes from trees and put it on your chart. Don't forget, when you're done filling out your chart, take a picture, put it on Canvas, send it to your teacher, because they are going to be so excited to see the work you have done today. Great job today, boys and girls. I'm so excited for this. I think this is a super fun assignment, and I can't wait to see how we did. Thank you so much. Bye.